Mineral exploration company Golden Metal Resources listed on AIM in May of this year. To talk about the company, I'm delighted to be joined by the Chief Executive, Oliver Friesen. So, Oliver, before this May's listing, how long had the company been established and what's its purpose?
Yeah, well, first of all, great to speak, Sarah. I know I've seen your name in the industry, so it's great to finally chat, especially about Golden Metal Resources. I'm looking forward to getting you all caught up. But yeah, so Golden Metal Resources was incorporated as a private company just under probably 3 years ago now, and it was set up under the Power Metal Resources umbrella, which is a name that some of the listeners might be familiar with. And it was originally set up to be a incubator of the company's Nevada focused assets. So Pilot Mountain was one of the first projects that went in there, which is now our flagship. And then we built that portfolio under the Golden Metal Resources umbrella over the course of about a year to about a year and a half after that company was incorporated, with the intention of bringing that private company to the UK market, which we, as you mentioned, successfully completed on May 10th of 2023. So it was a long journey, but to put together a really high quality package of assets and a really strong company with a good board, it takes time. And we took our time, but I think the result that you see now in the company is certainly a reflection of the time we took and the quality of what projects and management we have now to push this company forward.
Okay, before we talk about the assets and the quality of management, I want to talk about Power Metal Resources because it owns 61% of your company. It's held under a 12-month hard lock-in agreement. So what happens at the end of that lock-in period, and what do you hope for?
Yeah, of course, and that's a question that I think a lot of people are wanting to get more color on, especially because when you add Power Metals ownership with the other two high net worths who are in the business, there's only about 29% free float, which, in my opinion, as someone who also invests in the space and watches the space closely, it's probably one of the better capital structures out there, which is I think is a hugely important part of these businesses because so often companies have so many shares out, and it just can create a lot of overhang. So if anything, the power metal position, the way I view it, and some people aren't sure how to view that, I think it's an overwhelming positive for the business. You know, we have a very large and supportive shareholder in Power Metal Resources. As you mentioned correctly, it's held under a 12-month hard lock-in, so that would bring us to May of 2024. And then following that, there's another 12-month orderly market thereafter. And I think the main takeaway point that listeners should get is the fact that we're independent from Power, but we also have a very strong relationship with Sean and the team there. So, the conversations I've had, they're very bullish on what we're doing here with this company. They're very bullish on the long-term prospectivity and development potential of Golden Metal Resources. So, I'm very confident that they are going to be long-term holders of the stock. It's a very large position. So I view it as an overwhelming positive. On top of that, we get a lot of piggyback marketing from them. So they obviously have a very large retail following. So a lot of the more material news, they'll also put out through their channel. So if anything, it's just another positive to consider here, as we get an extra marketing machine to help us push our story forward. So the free float and the capital structure was certainly something that we really focused on when we built the business. We wanted to make sure that the stock was held with some really supportive shareholders, which I think we very much accomplished with Power and the other two high net worths, with about 29% free float. Beyond that, that doesn't even include the management and other kind of close acquaintances. So really tightly held stock, which I think in the backdrop of good news, I think can really allow the company to perform well with that in consideration.
So many of my viewers and listeners are familiar with me talking to chief executives who have assets in Australia, Canada, Africa, but very few, if any, with assets in Nevada. So how mining friendly a jurisdiction is it?
So that's a great point there. And that's actually the reason that we brought this package of assets to the UK market. I'm a Canadian originally, but I used to work for Barrick Gold. I used to live in Nevada. So when I moved to the United Kingdom, to London about 3 years ago, I was shocked by the fact that there was very few pure play Nevada-focused companies, because of all the places I've worked in the world, it's by far and away the most mining-friendly place I've been. And that's not just me speaking. The Fraser Institute put out their most recent rankings, and sure enough, Nevada was at the top of the list. So that means it's a great place to explore. But more importantly, once you find something, which we have at Pilot Mountain and on our other assets, the framework in place allows you to push these projects forward to development into mining. The likes of Barrick Gold and Newmont have built their companies on the backs of exploration and development in Nevada. So it's a fantastic place to explore, a fantastic place to permit, put things into production. So that's why we brought this package of assets to the UK market, and we're just essentially with the intention of giving UK investors exposure to the top place in the world to explore and develop.
So I've been reading your shareholder updates. I'm going to quote from one of your RNSs. You consider that Pilot Mountain hosts the largest known undeveloped tungsten resource in the US. What's the evidence and how are you going to prove this?
So the previous company that owned it back in 2018 actually did a mineral resource estimate to JORC standards. So we have that report. It tells us exactly how much tungsten is in the ground. There's 12.53 million tons at 0.27% tungsten trioxide. There's also significant copper, silver, zinc credits, as well as garnet, which is something that we're starting to talk a bit more to the market. So when you actually take a tungsten equivalent value, it's much higher than the 0.27% tungsten trioxide head grade. So we have what was done to JORC standards. We have the report, and effectively what that tells us is that with a very high degree of confidence, what that report says in the ground is there. So where we go from there now is we want to continue to expand that resource, but there's a lot of exploration upside. There's a lot of tons to be added effectively of tungsten. So a great starting point. As I mentioned, it's believed to be the largest in the US, which is a very important and strategic part of our business. But we think there's the bandwidth to definitely increase what we have in the ground there quite materially with more exploration.
So you talk about exploration upside, but how are you going to pay for this?
That's a great question. So we completed our IPO back in May, as mentioned. So we raised just under 2 million quid. So we can certainly use the funds from the IPO proceeds to go and drill that project. However, one of the core pillars of our business, and we've talked about this multiple times in various RNSs, is the US government award angle. And the reason that we've mentioned that is because tungsten is a critical mineral, and in particular, there's significant uses of tungsten within the military. And the Department of Defense in the US, actually, as of January 1st, 2026, so just under about 2.5 years from now, they're banning the imports of tungsten from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. And guess who the United States' largest import partner of tungsten is? Well, it's China. So effectively what that means is, in 2.5 years' time, they need to find a domestic source or a friendly source of tungsten to fill that void. And that puts us in a really fortuitous position because, number one, there's currently no active primary tungsten mines in the US. So they import everything. And here we are with what's believed to be the largest undeveloped tungsten deposit in the US, in the best jurisdiction in the US. So when you kind of add all those factors together, I think it becomes very clear how critical and important this asset is in the US. And for those listeners who are kind of tuned in to the various news that's going out across the US, the government, for really the first time ever, and this is mostly in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war, is now looking to support financially exploration and development projects in the US of companies looking for a lot of these critical minerals that go into the defense industries. So all that together puts us in a really advantageous position. I don't believe there's actually any companies that trade in the UK who are potentially in line to receive some of these grants through the DoD, the DOE, the DOC, the DOM. All of these different government organizations have funding pools available through the Biden administration. So we have a really aggressive award strategy, and the ideal outcome here is for us to use non-dilutive government funds to push this project forward. So there's a lot of those government grants that we're pushing forward. We have a great team of people in the US who are helping us identify and apply for these. So the ultimate goal, as I mentioned, is to not use shareholder money to drill and to explore. That would be the ideal outcome, especially in this market. So we're pushing some of those initiatives forward. We'll see how those play out, and then we can make a decision in the coming months here to see how things are shaking out.
So you've got support at the highest level for the Pilot Mountain asset. What else is in the portfolio, and is it enjoying similar support at the highest level?
So the other assets we have in the portfolio, and we've actually put out some news quite recently on some of the other assets, just I think to highlight the quality of the package that we have. So first of all, Pilot Mountain, 100% owned. It is definitely our flagship asset. There's no question about that. That is a standalone asset in most companies. However, I'm an exploration geologist by trade. I get excited about making discoveries. And when share prices can make those big moves on the back of those discoveries. So we've amassed a really fantastic portfolio of assets that are a bit earlier stage, but have some really, really great promise. So we have the Kibbe Basin lithium project, which is actually an opportunity that we identified and staked ourselves for effectively pennies on the dollar. So that's another great asset that's 100% owned in the portfolio. We have our Garfield property, where we recently made two discoveries we made the discovery of skarn and porphyry type mineralization on that property. That's a bit of a technical kind of angle there, but I encourage listeners to go and have a read of that RNS that went out recently. So we've launched some immediate follow-up work, which will hopefully announce to the market the results of that in the coming weeks here. And then we have a very intriguing and exciting gold project as well. It's in northern Nevada. It's what's called a Carlin type gold deposit. So these are gold deposits that are exclusive to the state of Nevada. When I worked for Barrick Gold, it was on a Carlin type deposit. So a lot of gold bugs that know about the story. That's the kind of the asset that they're focused on. And then we also have the Stonewall as well, which is a very exciting gold and silver asset. So I think when you take those all together, we have our clear flagship, but we have four other fantastic assets which we're exploring, we're adding value to, and bringing those up the value chain with the ultimate goal of monetizing those down the line for our shareholders.
I was going to say, what is the ultimate plan? Offtakes, proving up resources, selling them on, all of the above?
Yeah, so all options are on the table. The ultimate goal here, as a shareholder in the business myself, is we want to make money for our shareholders, and we want to do it in an environmentally friendly way, in a way that kind of respects what we're doing in the state of Nevada, the people that live there. But we want to make money. We want our shareholders to make money. It's as simple as that. So we're looking at all options. Everything's on the table when it comes to, as we push these forward, how we can eventually monetize these. One thing just to quickly note, and you did mention offtake, Sarah, is we recently signed an offtake agreement for our Pilot Mountain project with a company called Global Tungsten and Powders. They are the largest tungsten processing company in the United States of America. So once again, when we talk about creating a circular supply chain within the US for tungsten, well, we have that offtake signed with GTP, which is the best partner you can have in the US, which is another very exciting development that we announced a few months ago after our list. So that offtake covers about half of the production that came out of the scoping study. So there's certainly a bit more bandwidth there to bring on another offtake partner. And as we advance exploration and grow the resource, potentially we could take on other offtakers. But we have half that in-ground resource that would be taken by GTP if we were able to put this in production, which is a very exciting development. So the offtake has already been signed, and then we're looking to monetize everything else as we continue to push the projects forward.
So finally, Oliver, you've indicated there that you've got skin in the game. Talk to me about the quality of management involved.
Yeah, of course. So the management team we've kind of put together since day one. We were looking for different people that fit different skill sets. I'm a geologist myself, an exploration geologist. That's where my kind of strongest suit is. So we wanted to kind of put around me people who had a bit more experience on the project management, the project development side of things, as well as experience in the capital markets as well. So we have a really well-blended team. I'm a younger guy myself. I'm very excited and full of piss and vinegar, as they might say. So we also put a bit more kind of veteran presences in there as well, with David Ovadia, our chairman, who's also a geologist, worked with the BGS for most of his career. He's very, very well connected in government, very good geologist. We have Mark Burnett, who's very plugged in with the capital markets here in London. He's the one getting us all the meetings with the various people, writing checks and making decisions. So it's a fantastic board. And on top of that, we just added a gentleman named JT Starzecki, who is the CMO of a company called 5E, which trades on the NASDAQ. He lives in the United States of America. He's very plugged in with government as well. He's actually responsible for pushing a very exciting lithium and boron project in California through development. So he's got that skill set at the later stage of these projects as you take them from exploration longer and deeper into that development cycle. That's where his expertise really are. And on top of that, as I mentioned, he's very knowledgeable and plugged in with the U.S. government, which is, as I mentioned, an important part of our story. So I think all in all, it's a really well blended board. Everyone works together really well. We all kind of fit in and do different things around the business. So it's a great team, and we're looking forward to continuing to work on things together and push things forward.
And what a story it is. There's so many more questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to hold it back for the next chapter and not commandeer so much of your time. Thank you so much, Oliver Friesen, Chief Executive of Golden Metal Resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Let's chat again soon.